Hey, what's up, everybody? Video 44 coming at you with another video. All right, so I feel like talking some basketball. Looking forward to game 2 of the NBA Finals tonight, 5 o'clock. First game was a classic Indiana Pacers 2025 basketball game where you have a situation where you think that the game is over and the Thunder were controlling the game for a good 47 minutes of 48 of them. And the last minute, or to say the last quarter, you start seeing the Indiana Pacers do what they've been doing. Finding a way to continue the intention of scoring regardless of what the score is. And man, were they phenomenal to watch down the stretch of that game. Andrew Nembhard, shake and bake, 3-point shot, and then of course several other plays made. Corner 3 by Miles Turner. The Pacers just went on a whole thing in the last 7 minutes of that game after being down by 15 with like 9 minutes to go. They just came roaring back, man. And of course, Tyrese Halliburton with the game-winning mid-range jumper, which I thought had just the perfect amount of air underneath it, arc on it, to send the Pacers into a 1-0 lead in the series. I don't know if I'm ready to say that I think the Pacers have a chance of winning this series, because I still legitimately believe that there's a very distinctive difference between the two teams as it pertains to which one is more talented. But there's something to be said for a continuous proof of a team being capable of being stronger minded than teams that are more talented than them. And there's a huge component that comes to winning, and that is having a strong enough mind to overcome circumstances, to remain focused, remain steadfast on your principles on both sides of the floor, keeping your energy up. And I just think that the Pacers have proven throughout the course of these playoffs that that is their DNA. They are one of the best teams that I've ever seen at maintaining their intentions throughout the course of what would otherwise demoralize or make a team slump their shoulders or whatever. They don't have that trait that makes them stop. They just keep going. I heard someone say something a couple of days ago that kind of summed up the whole thing. You never actually beat the Pacers. They just run out of time. Because if they have time left, they're coming back. And so that's the way they are. The Terminator team is what I call them. They have the mentality of the Terminator. They're their machine. They're coming at you. They don't waver on their focus or their confidence. They just keep coming. And I don't know that teams that are much better than them can defeat them because of it. Because being better than a team on paper and having the equipment, so to speak, to overcome doesn't often tell the story about what's in their what type of mental fortitude and spiritual fortitude a team has or a player has. And that's why I'm of the mindset that the Pacers could very well win the series, though they don't look like on paper they should have a chance. I don't know that the Thunder are not a good team when it comes to being mentally strong. They seem like a pretty strong mentally tough basketball squad. It's not like they're deficient in that area, but you're just coming up against something else here with this Pacer team. And I still want to say that we're not fools when we look at the Pacers and say you're not better than the Thunder. I don't want to go as far as say I think the Pacers are going to win the series. I just say that the Pacers have proven yet again that you being better than them doesn't stop them from coming at you. And if you're not able to withstand what they're bringing, you can be better and very well still lose. And that's what they've proven throughout the course of these playoffs. Maybe they have benefited some from the injuries that have been inflicted on their opponents. I think it's safe to say that Dame injury really did hurt the Milwaukee Bucks. It's safe to say that Cleveland situation didn't go well for Cleveland based on injuries. But they beat the heck out of a New York team that was very healthy for the most part. And they got a 1-0 lead in the NBA Finals going into Game 2 tonight at 8 p.m. Eastern, 5 p.m. Pacific. So as somebody who doesn't have a horse in the race, I'm very excited about what this series can mean if the Pacers can continue to maintain the same DNA that they've had throughout the course of these playoffs. Never say die. And what's encouraging if you're a Pacer fan is that you believe your team can play a lot better. I don't know who it was that was quoted from the Pacers, but they said they don't even think they played that well. I think it was maybe Pascal Siakam who said, "Yo, we didn't play great," and found a way to win the game. So, the way I perceived that basketball game, and I said in my reaction to it, was it seemed to me that the first couple of quarters for the Pacers was a fill-out quarter. The first quarter, they looked jittery, out of, trying to move too fast. It seemed not quite ready for the level that the Thunder brought to the table. But as the game progressed, the more and more comfortable the Pacers became with what was coming at them. And by the end of the game, they had, as I put it, downloaded everything they needed to understand about the Thunder. And then from there, we're able to attack the Thunder in some ways the Thunder didn't do as good of a job at adjusting to. So I'm curious to see what type of adjustments Dagnall's going to make. I'm curious to see how this young Thunder team that knows it has more talents than the Pacers is going to approach game 2. Because just like in the Celtics series, when the Celtics had the lead on the Knicks, 20-point leads that they blew, just like when the game, game 1, when the Knicks had a big lead on the Pacers, the question is it going to matter that you outplayed this team throughout the course of that game? Because if you come in thinking about the loss, instead of the fact that you had the upper hand the majority of the game and was beating that team and inflicting your will upon that team throughout the course of the game, then you could come in very well mentally fractured, and it could have you once again dropping another basketball game in the series. So that's the question for me. What mentality does the Thunder have going into this series, this particular game rather? Are they going to acknowledge that, we could have won this game if we would have just kept our foot on the gas, if we would have did the same things in the first 3 quarters, in the fourth quarter that we did in the first 3 quarters, we could have won this game? Or are they going to say, we lost this game, this team has us figured out, what are we going to do? Because it's all about the mental aspect of it. X's and O's is not going to win you this series. That's what game 1 taught us. X's and O's is not going to win you this series. Mental fortitude, relentlessness, good health, obviously. Those things are going to ultimately determine who wins the series. Effort, 50-50 ball winning, things like that. When hitting your free throws, those things are going to determine who wins the series. Now, I do think that the Thunder can be somewhat discouraged by the fact that they barely turned the ball over and barely gave up any transition buckets and still managed to walk away with a loss. That could be deflating, because you wonder if you're going to continue to have games like that where you only turn the ball over a handful of times. You know what I mean? That's not something that's against a Pacer defense that's much improved. I don't know if you can count on having less than 10 turnovers as a team if you're the Thunder. Now, the Thunder forcing, 14 steals, and I don't remember how many turnovers, over 20 turnovers, and still losing could also be discouraging on the other end, because it's like, as great as a defense as we are, if we can't win games where we're inflicting our will on them defensively and we're taking care of the basketball, what does it look like when some of those things start to regress a little bit? What does it look like when they start playing a little better and we hit them with our hardest punch in that first game and still lost? Now, I don't think that was their hardest punch, but when you consider those particular stats being so stellar as they are, and when you consider the Thunder, if there's a superpower that they have, it's in those areas. They showed who they are, and they still walked away not the winner of the first game. I just wonder if the Thunder are going to have a little bit of a fragile mindset going into game 2. So that's my wonder about the Thunder. What would dropping game 2 mean to the Thunder when they have to go back to Indy and try to figure out how to win on the road after dropping 2 at home? Even if you're the better team, at some point in time you start wondering if you're the Boston Celtics and they're the New York Knicks, so to speak. You start to wonder if this series is going to mirror that one. And so, yeah, I wonder about the Thunder, man. Them going 7 games with the Denver Nuggets showed us that they can be beaten multiple times. At the end of the day, they did blow the Thunder out in the 7th game. Nobody was really all that surprised by that. But they've lost a game by 40-something points in these playoffs as well. Now, that may not be indicative of them losing the championship, because we've seen teams lose like that and still win rings. But this is a young Thunder team. They're relying upon a lot of guys who are just getting started in their career, not a whole lot of veteran leadership. And so these type of moments where you drop your first NBA Finals game after dominating that game against a team that has a little more veteran leadership and a little more championship experience, it can really make you wonder about yourself. It can really have you doubting yourself in ways that you haven't been forced to all season long. As I said, when we faced the Thunder, me and my Laker team, early in the regular season, probably around March, when we had that back-to-back process in Oklahoma, one of the things that my homework had shown me was that the Thunder are a team that beats on people who they know they are better than, but tend to drop games against contenders. That was what they had shown me throughout the course of this season. The only sub 500 team that they lost to, or not contender they lost to, was the Spurs. Everybody else, they beat up on all the little guys. They take care of everybody they're supposed to beat. But they were losing to Denver. They were losing to the Lakers. They were losing to contenders. Any of the contenders, the Rockets, they dropped games against Minnesota. They dropped games. So it got to a point where it's like, if you come at the Thunder with a certain level of confidence and unwavering, excellence about how you approach them, and you're not giving them too much respect, they tend to look vulnerable, and they tend to drop games against those teams. And I think the Pacers are in a space, and the Denver Nuggets were in a space where they were able to come at them with that type of confidence and that type of excellence. And so what I would tell the Pacers, if I'm Carlisle, is don't respect this team any more than anybody else would, than we would respect anybody else. We understand that they're the best team coming out of the Western Conference. But the one thing that they don't tend to do well against is against those who don't waver in confidence. And that's our DNA if I'm the Pacers. We don't waver in confidence. We don't care what the score is. We're coming at you, and we're going to use our principles to get our buckets when necessary, every chance we get. And so you may be able to win this series based on that data if you're the Pacers, so long as you don't waver. Continue being who you are, going straight at this team, not respecting them as if the NBA champions already, but forcing them to prove that they are. And that's all I was saying about the Timberwolves. That was my issue with the Timberwolves' approach to the Thunder. Timberwolves' approach to the Thunder is if they were playing the 65 Celtics or something like that. Like they had proven that they were the greatest team that we've ever seen. I don't think that this team is the greatest team we've ever seen. The Thunder are a team that has shown they can beat up on a very soft field, which is what this NBA provided this season. So, if they had nothing but legendary teams to face every damn night, they'd probably be a 500 team based on the data we've seen. So who's going to believe in themselves when going up against this team? Who's not going to hand them all this success? That's one of the reasons why I'm not a big fan of the Thunder, because it seems like the media is ready to hand them a legendary status for beating up on a weak field and expressing their strengths as they were expected to as a souped-up team with a lot of talent. You're supposed to be winning basketball games. But can you overcome real adversity? Real adversity. And that's what the Thunder are going to have to prove. And if I'm the Pacers, I'm going to make them prove that. I'm not going to be respecting them like they Shaq and Kobe out the gate like Anthony Edwards did. You know what I mean? The way that they were approaching the Thunder. It was like they were so scared of the Thunder, they never gave themselves a chance of beating the Thunder. And so that's where my head goes going into game 2. Indiana got the first blood. I don't think anybody would be overly surprised if the Thunder still win the series, or even if the Indiana Pacers don't win another game in this series. I don't think too many people would be surprised. I picked Thunder in 5. Like, the Thunder are the better team. But there is a certain attribute that the Pacers have over the Thunder, and that appears to be an unwavering confidence and a relentlessness that can't be denied. They will not be demoralized. And so that's what I see there, man. And I'm very, very curious to see what these two coaches are going to bring to the table tonight. The urgency for the Indiana Pacers is you've got this team on the ropes. You punch them in the mouth, but you don't get a championship for winning one game, especially against a team like this. You have to continue to apply the pressure. You have to continue to maintain your aggression and make good decisions. And if you allow them in flexing to demoralize you at any point, then you will go down. But as long as you maintain your mentality that you had in that fourth quarter, game one, you give yourself a really, really good chance at upsetting this basketball team. And so that's really my point of view, based on, as you know, being somebody who's rooting for the underdog Pacers to win the series, man. I want them to continue to keep their foot on the neck of the OKC Thunder, and see if it doesn't lead them to more victories in this series. And so that's pretty much where my head is, man, going into this game. And I just wanted to give you guys a few thoughts, and I hope everybody enjoys the game. I understand that it's been said that there was a record low in ratings for game one of this series. But as I said many times in talking about this series, people are going to have to stumble in to these two teams and see great basketball in order to have an urgency about watching them. Just like we had to learn to love Steph Curry, just like we had to learn to watch all these teams that ultimately we watch regularly now, so too we have to learn to watch Tyrese Halliburton and Shai Gilgeous-Alexander. You don't put these teams on national television because you're afraid of the bad ratings. But the only way people are going to be introduced to these teams in order to be excited about watching them is to be on national television. And so it's the NBA's fault that we don't watch these teams. They're good teams. And now we're going to get a chance to see that, and there's going to be a lot of people who are going to hop on the bandwagon of both of these teams based on these series, especially Tyrese Halliburton. After what we saw in game one, that was the lowest rated NBA Finals game in a long time, but I guarantee game two is going to be a lot better in that regard, because game one was something that made people want to come back and watch game two. And that's really all it is. You give us something to watch. You can't expect everybody to rush to it right away the first time. But over time, once we start getting more used to these teams, we'll come back and watch them again and again and again, and you get the ratings you're looking for over time. But it doesn't, you're not going to get Lakers Celtics ratings from a Pacer Thunder series the first time those two teams match. That's just not how that works. So the NBA is going to have to be very patient. And this was good ball, man. Couldn't have went any better for two small market teams that nobody knew who they were. If you stumbled into game one and just so happened to be watching it, or it happened to be on while you were somewhere else, by the end of the game, you were watching the screen. And that is all the NBA could ask for in this situation. So that's pretty much what I got to say. My name is BDF44. I thank you all for watching. I'm out.